The great hall of the Unity Station was filled with bright lights and many different beings from across the galaxy. It was the first time humans and the Zalari Empire were meeting for peace talks. The air was full of excitement, curiosity, and a little bit of nervousness. Both sides had waited a long time for this moment. Daniel stood near the back of the room, quietly watching the alien guests. As a human engineer, he had been sent to help manage the station's systems during the summit. He never expected to see such tall, elegant beings like the Zalari in person. Their pale, crystal blue skin and tall, slim bodies made them look like creatures from a fantasy story. They wore flowing robes with bright colors and shiny decorations. Among them was Lady Valera. She was a noblewoman from the Zalari Empire, known for her intelligence and curiosity. Unlike many of her people, she was interested in humans, their strange ways, and their technology. When she entered the hall, her eyes quickly scanned the room. She had studied humans from afar, but seeing them in person was different. They were shorter than her people, but looked strong, solid, and full of energy. As she walked past, her eyes met Daniel's for a brief moment. There was no fear or judgment in her gaze, only curiosity. Daniel noticed her calm and confident posture. For a second, it seemed like the rest of the room disappeared. But then, the sound of introductions and speeches brought both of them back to reality. The peace talks began with leaders from both sides, giving speeches about cooperation and friendship. Translators worked hard to make sure every word was understood. After the formal event, a casual reception was held so members of both groups could speak freely. Daniel found himself standing near one of the food tables, where strange alien dishes were displayed. Suddenly, a soft voice spoke behind him. "Excuse me, human, may I ask you something?" Lady Valera stood there, her head slightly tilted with polite interest. Daniel turned and nodded, slightly surprised but trying to stay calm. "Of course, ma'am. You are an engineer, correct?" she asked. "Yes," Daniel replied. "I'm part of the station's maintenance team. I help keep things running." Valera smiled gently. "I have read much about human technology. It is very different from ours." Daniel chuckled. "That's true. And I've heard Zalari technology is very advanced as well." Her eyes sparkled a little. "Perhaps we can learn from each other." For the next few minutes, they talked about their worlds, technologies, and cultures. Daniel explained how humans solved problems with simple tools and strong hands, while Valera described how Zalari used advanced energy fields and delicate machines. Daniel noticed how careful she was with her words, but also how genuinely interested she seemed. Most of the other Zalari nobles stayed with their own group, but Valera was different. Suddenly a soft alarm beeped in Daniel's earpiece. He listened carefully. It was a minor power fluctuation in the station's core systems. Normally it wouldn't be serious, but during such an important summit, even small problems needed attention. "Is something wrong?" Valera asked, noticing his distracted look. "There's a small issue with the power grid," Daniel explained. "It's probably nothing, but I should check it out to be safe." Valera's expression changed to one of concern. "May I come with you? I wish to see more of your technology up close." Daniel hesitated. Allowing a noble guest into the technical areas might not be usual, but she seemed truly curious and respectful. "All right," he agreed, "as long as you stay close and follow safety rules." She nodded with a soft smile. "Of course." They left the busy hall and entered the quieter maintenance corridors. The lights here were dimmer, and the sound of humming machines filled the air. Daniel led her to the control room, where colorful screens displayed system readings. As he worked, Valera watched closely, her long fingers lightly touching the edge of a console. She was amazed by how humans use simple but strong designs. "This is impressive," she said softly. "Your machines are not as graceful as ours, but they seem very reliable." Daniel grinned. "That's one way to put it. We humans like things that work even when they're a bit rough." While they spoke, the system showed that a larger problem might be developing. A main power stabilizer was slowly losing balance. If not fixed soon, it could cause a serious shutdown of the summit's support systems. "This might get tricky," Daniel muttered. I'll need to replace a few parts to prevent bigger issues. I wish to help, Valera said, stepping closer. Daniel looked at her with surprise. Are you sure? It can get dangerous? She lifted her chin with confidence. I may be a noble, but I am not afraid to face challenges. Besides, I want to understand your ways better. Daniel smiled. All right then. Let's get to work. And so, the strange partnership between a human engineer and an alien noblewoman began, one that would soon face bigger tests than either of them expected. The quiet hum of machines filled the control room as Daniel and Lady Valera stood side by side. The blinking lights on the consoles showed the power systems were unstable. The summit depended on these systems to keep the Unity station safe and comfortable for all guests. Daniel frowned as he studied the readouts. The main power stabilizer is weakening. If it fails, the whole station could lose power. That would be a disaster during the summit. Valera's sharp eyes scanned the screens with interest. What must be done to fix it? Daniel tapped the controls. I need to replace a few core components, but the parts are heavy and the workspace is tight. It will take skill and strength. Valera nodded without hesitation. Then I will help. I must see this through. Daniel blinked. Are you sure? This kind of work is usually for the engineers and technicians. She smiled with quiet determination. I may be a noblewoman, but I am not afraid to face challenges. If you allow me to help, I promise to follow your instructions carefully. Daniel looked at her closely. There was no sign of fear or hesitation in her eyes. Instead, he saw something rare, a true desire to learn and to contribute. All right, he said, but we must be careful. One wrong move and it could damage the whole system. Valera bowed her head slightly. I understand. Daniel led her out of the control room and down narrow corridors lined with pipes and wires. The air grew cooler and the sounds of machines became louder. Soon, they reached the maintenance bay where the power stabilizer was housed. The room was large but crowded with thick cables and heavy machinery. At the center stood the stabilizer unit, a huge device glowing faintly with blue energy. Daniel pointed to a panel on the side. This is the part we need to replace. It controls the flow of energy to the whole station. Valera approached the panel and reached out her hand to touch the cool metal surface. Her fingers trembled just a little. She looked smaller and more fragile here, surrounded by so much equipment. Daniel noticed and smiled kindly. Don't worry. I'll guide you through each step. He handed her a tool similar to a wrench but made with advanced human technology. This will help you remove the bolts. They are tight, but if you turn slowly, you can manage. Valera nodded and gripped the tool tightly. She had never held anything like it before. The weight felt strange, and her hands were not used to this kind of labor. She took a deep breath and began turning the first bolt. It was difficult, and her arms shook. Daniel stepped close and placed his hand gently over hers, helping with the strength. Here, use your body weight, he said softly. Lean into it. Valera adjusted her stance and pushed harder. Slowly, the bolt began to turn. She smiled at Daniel, surprised at her own success. Good, he said. Now the others. For the next hour they worked together. Valera learned quickly but struggled with the heavy parts and small spaces. Daniel admired her effort. She was not used to physical work, but she never gave up. At one point, Valera paused and looked at the large replacement core. It was far heavier than anything she had ever lifted. This is too big for me, she said quietly, but I want to try. Daniel hesitated. It's dangerous. You could hurt yourself. She looked determined. I do not want to be weak in front of you or my people. I will try. Daniel nodded slowly. All right. I will help you. He showed her a special human-designed exo-assist suit stored nearby. The suit was light but had powered joints that helped increase strength. With it, even a smaller person could lift heavy objects. Valera put on the suit carefully. It felt strange, but soon she noticed how her movements became stronger. Her steps grew firmer, and her arms could hold weight she never thought possible. Together, Daniel and Valera lifted the replacement core. It was still heavy, but the exo-assist made it manageable. They carefully moved the new core into place. Valera's heart raced as she worked. She was doing something no noblewoman from her world had done before. See? You are stronger than you think, Daniel said with a smile. Valera smiled back, feeling proud. I could not have done this without you. As they finished installing the core, the system lights stabilized. The hum of machines grew steady and calm. Daniel, check the console. It's working. The power flow is stable again. Valera looked at the glowing core and then at Daniel. Thank you for trusting me. Daniel shook his head. No, thank you. You taught me that strength is not just about muscles. It's about courage and will. Just then, an alert flashed on the main console. A sudden spike in energy shook the room. Daniel's eyes widened. Something is wrong? We need to check the system fast. Valera grabbed at his arm. I am ready. Let us face this together. Without fear, they moved toward the next challenge. Their strange friendship had begun in the heart of the machines, but it would soon be tested by dangers they had never imagined. The sudden energy spike had shaken Daniel and Lady Valera. The room still hummed with power, but the warning lights flashed urgently. The system was not yet safe. Daniel checked the console again. The stabilizer is holding for now, but the core we just installed might not be enough. We need to replace the main energy core itself. It is much bigger and heavier. Valera's eyes widened as she looked at the readings. How heavy is it? Daniel sighed. Almost twice your weight. No, Zalari alone could lift it safely. She stared at the massive energy core glowing faintly inside the storage room. It was taller than her, thick and bulky, and clearly made to be handled by someone strong. Valera bit her lip. It is too big for me. Daniel looked at her kindly. It is too big for most people. Even I would need help. Valera took a deep breath and said quietly, but I will try. Daniel raised his eyebrows. You don't have to. It is very dangerous. She looked him in the eyes with steady courage. If I fail, at least I will know I tried. If I succeed, I will have shown that even a noblewoman can face her limits and overcome them. Daniel felt a deep respect for her. He said, All right, I will help you. Daniel brought the Exo Assist suit from the storage room. The suit was designed to support heavy lifting. It had metal joints and powered hydraulics to help the wearer lift more than their body weight. Valera carefully put on the suit. The metal plates covered her arms and legs, and a soft helmet rested on her head. It felt strange, but also powerful. She flexed her fingers and felt the strength in her movements. Daniel explained. This suit will multiply your strength, but you must move slowly and carefully. If you rush, the suit might malfunction. Valera nodded. I understand. Together, they entered the storage room where the huge energy core waited. The room was dim, with only the glow from the core lighting the space. Valera looked up at the core. It looks like a mountain. Daniel smiled. It is made to power an entire space station. It is built tough. Daniel helped attach the suit's lifting hooks to the core's handles. Slowly, Valera began to lift. At first, the weight pushed her down, but the suit powered her movements. Her arms moved steadily as she lifted the core inch by inch. Sweat appeared on her forehead. The effort was exhausting, but she did not stop. Daniel stayed close, watching her carefully and offering encouragement. You are doing great, he said. Keep your balance and breathe slowly. Valera's legs trembled, but she held her focus. She took one careful step, then another, moving the core toward the replacement spot. Suddenly the core shifted, making her stumble. Panic flashed in her eyes. Daniel caught her arm. Steady! You've got this. She took a deep breath, steadied herself, and tried again. This time, her movements were smoother. As they reached the power stabilizer chamber, Daniel opened the hatch. The core had to be placed perfectly for the system to work. Valera lowered the core carefully. The suit's sensors beeped, warning her to adjust the angle. She shifted the core slightly, and it settled into place. Daniel quickly sealed the hatch. Now let's connect the power links. Valera began to work on the cables, her hands moving more confidently with the suit's help. She connected each link, making sure there were no loose ends. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed through the room, a grinding sound from the machinery. Daniel's face grew serious. The power system is under heavy stress. We need to finish fast, Valera nodded. Almost done. As she connected the last link, the system beeped loudly. The power flow stabilized. Green lights lit up across the control panels. The crisis was over, Valera removed the helmet of the exo-assist suit, breathing hard but smiling. Daniel clapped his hands. You did it. I'm impressed. She laughed softly. I could not have done it without your help, Daniel smiled back. You showed real strength today, not just physical but in your heart. Valera looked thoughtful. I have learned that strength is not just muscle or size. It is will and courage. Daniel nodded. That is what makes humans special too. Just then, a voice came over the station's loudspeakers. Attention all delegates. The power system is stable. The summit will continue as planned. Relief spread through the station. The summit was saved. Valera and Daniel walked back toward the control room. As they passed other delegates, many looked at Valera with new respect. She noticed and smiled quietly. The experience had changed her. She was no longer just a noblewoman watching from afar. She was a part of something bigger. Daniel glanced at her. You handled more than just machines today. You handled the weight of your people's hopes. Valera met his eyes. And you taught me that sometimes we need others to help us carry the load. The two shared a silent moment, understanding that this was more than just a mission. It was the beginning of a rare friendship, one that crossed worlds and boundaries. The future of human Zelari relations had found a new hope in the strength of two very different beings learning to work as one. The day was growing late inside Unity Station, but the work was far from over. Daniel and Lady Valera had just completed the heavy task of replacing the main energy core. The station's systems were beginning to stabilize, and the summit was expected to continue smoothly. However, an unexpected alarm shattered the calm. Red lights flashed around the maintenance bay where the power systems were housed. A loud siren echoed through the halls. Daniel's communicator beeped urgently. Power surge detected in Sector 7, the voice said. Daniel's eyes widened. That's near the stabilizer chamber. We need to check immediately. Valera nodded, determination shining in her eyes. Let us go. Together they rushed through the corridors, their footsteps echoing in the empty halls. As they reached the chamber, smoke was beginning to fill the air. The once steady hum of machines had become harsh and uneven. Daniel pointed to the control panel. The backup systems are failing. If this keeps up, we could lose all power. Valera looked around quickly. Her heart beat faster as the danger became real. Suddenly, a loud clang echoed behind them. Part of the machinery had shifted and fallen, blocking the exit. Valera turned and saw that a large panel had come loose, and the heavy exo-assist suit she had been wearing earlier was trapped underneath. She rushed to free it, but the weight was too much for her alone. Daniel stepped in. Hold on, I'm coming. Together? They pushed and pulled, but the heavy suit would not budge easily. Keep talking to me, Daniel said. Tell me what you feel. Valera took deep breaths and replied steadily, It's tight. I'm a little trapped. But okay. Daniel's hands moved skillfully, finding a lever to loosen the panel. With a loud creak, the machinery shifted enough for Valera to pull free. She stepped out, breathing hard but smiling. Thank you, she said softly. Daniel smiled back. You were brave, you stayed calm, and that helped. Just as they turned to address the power surge, the room trembled violently. Sparks flew from broken cables. The temperature rose quickly. Daniel's voice was urgent. We have to shut down the main grid manually. Follow me. They dashed toward the main control panel. Valera followed closely, her mind racing but focused. Daniel began flipping switches, cutting off power to unstable circuits. Valera helped by reading readings from the consoles and pressing buttons as directed. Suddenly, a burst of energy exploded nearby, sending a wave of heat across the room. Valera shielded her face, feeling the heat but standing firm. Daniel called out, Almost there? With one final switch, the power surge stopped. The alarm silenced and the room slowly cooled. Both of them breathed deeply, relief washing over their faces. Valera looked at Daniel with admiration. I was afraid, but you helped me stay strong, Daniel smiled. Fear is natural. What matters is what you do with it. They stood quietly for a moment, feeling the weight of what they had just survived. The incident had been dangerous, but it had shown Valera the true meaning of courage and teamwork. Later, as the summit resumed without further issues, word spread of Lady Valera's bravery. Many delegates whispered in surprise, a noblewoman facing danger alongside a human engineer. Not with fear, but with strength. Valera found herself thinking about that moment often. She had tested her limits and found that they were not fixed. With the right help and her own will, she could overcome more than she had imagined. Daniel noticed the change too. She seemed more confident, more ready to face whatever came next. Their partnership had grown from curiosity into trust, and trust into something deeper. Together, they were ready to meet the challenges the future held, even those that seemed too big to handle alone. After the power crisis was over, Lady Valera found herself in a new place, not just in the station, but in her own heart. She had faced fear, danger, and physical challenge, and she had not backed down. But she also knew the work was far from finished. The summit was still going on, and with it came politics, plans, and unseen threats. Valera felt the weight of her people's hopes resting on her shoulders. As a noblewoman, she was expected to be strong in mind and spirit, but also graceful and composed. Yet, deep inside, she still struggled. One morning, Daniel found her sitting quietly in the observation deck, staring out at the endless stars. "You look troubled," he said gently, sitting beside her. Valera sighed. "I am not as strong as I hoped to be. The exo-assist suit helped with the heavy work, but I feel weak without it. I wonder if my people would see me differently if they knew." Daniel looked thoughtful. "Strength is not just about muscle or machines. It's about what you do when no one is watching, about your courage to try." She smiled faintly. "You speak like a poet," he chuckled. "Maybe, but it's true. You showed bravery and heart. That is strength." Valera's eyes sparkled. "Then I must learn to be stronger, not just with machines, but in myself." Over the next days, Daniel helped her train. They worked together on simple exercises, balance, endurance, and control. The exo-assist suit was still there when needed, but Valera wanted to rely more on her own body. It was hard. Her slender frame was not built for heavy labor. Her muscles ached, and sometimes she doubted if she could do it. But Daniel was patient and encouraging. "You don't have to be like a human," he said. "Be the best Scifi you can be," Valera nodded. "I want to be worthy of my people and of you." Their training became a daily routine, and slowly Valera's strength grew. She could lift heavier parts, move faster, and last longer, but it was more than physical. Her confidence bloomed. One evening, during a break, Valera spoke quietly. "Daniel, I am afraid. Not of machines or work, but of failure. Of disappointing those who trust me." Daniel looked at her seriously. "Everyone fears failure. What makes heroes is that they keep going anyway." She smiled gratefully. "Thank you for believing in me," Daniel smiled back. "Always." Their friendship deepened with every challenge they faced. The noblewoman who had once been unsure of herself was becoming a leader, strong, brave, and kind. Then one day, news came that shocked them both. An investigation had uncovered signs of sabotage. Someone wanted to ruin the peace summit by damaging the station's power systems. Valera's eyes burned with determination. "We must find out who is behind this." Daniel nodded and stopped them. Together, they began to look for clues. They checked security footage, analyzed data, and spoke with station personnel. The saboteur was clever, hiding well in the crowd. But Valera's sharp mind and Daniel's technical skills made a strong team. After days of searching, they discovered evidence pointing to a small group of Scifi nobles who opposed peace with humans. They believed their empire should remain separate and powerful alone. Valera's heart sank. The threat came from within her own people, but she was not afraid. She and Daniel went to the station's security chief with their findings. Together, they set a trap to catch the saboteurs in the act. The night was tense. Valera waited silently in a shadowed corridor, her nerves steady. Daniel stood nearby, ready to act. Suddenly, movement appeared. Figures crept through the halls, carrying strange devices. Valera stepped forward. "Stop! You will not harm this summit." The saboteurs turned, shocked to see her. "You don't understand," one hissed. "Humans are a threat to our way of life." Valera's voice was firm. "They are not our enemies. We can be stronger together." The standoff lasted only moments before station security arrived, arresting the saboteurs. Later, Valera stood with Daniel, watching the stars through the observation window. "I never thought I would face danger from my own people," she said softly. Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder. "Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones within." Valera smiled. "Thank you for standing by me." Daniel smiled back. "Always." They knew the summit would continue, and so would their journey, a journey of courage, trust, and hope for a better future. After the arrest of the saboteurs, the summit's atmosphere grew tense, but hopeful. The delegates knew danger was near, but many believed that peace was still possible. Lady Valera and Daniel became key figures in keeping the summit secure and calm. One quiet afternoon, Valera and Daniel were reviewing security reports when an alert flashed on the screen. "Another system anomaly detected," Daniel said, frowning. "This time it's in the communications array." Valera's eyes narrowed. "Someone is trying to disrupt our messages. We must act fast." They headed to the communications hub. The room was filled with consoles and glowing screens, all busy with data from across the galaxy. Daniel quickly checked the systems while Valera scanned the area for anything unusual. "Here," Daniel said, pointing at a hidden port on the back of a console. "Someone installed a device to interfere with our signals." Valera examined it closely, a small but powerful jammer. Daniel nodded. "If left unchecked, it could block all communications. We'd be isolated." Valera's face hardened. "This sabotage goes deeper than we thought." They removed the device carefully and analyzed its technology. It was advanced and seemed to come from a faction opposed to the summit's goals. Valera looked determined. "We need to find the source." Working together, they traced the jammer's signal to a nearby maintenance shaft. The air inside was cool and smelled faintly of metal. Slowly, they moved through the narrow tunnel, alert to any sounds. Suddenly, a shadow darted past them. "Stop!" Valera commanded. The figure froze and turned. It was a young Zalari technician, his face pale. Daniel stepped forward. "Why are you here with this device?" The technician hesitated, then spoke quietly. "I was told to plant it. I did not want to, but I had no choice." Valera's eyes softened. "Who gave you the orders?" He looked scared. "A group of nobles. They want to end the talks. They say humans cannot be trusted." Daniel frowned. "We must stop them." They escorted the technician back to security, hoping to learn more. Later, Valera and Daniel met with the summit leaders. They shared what they had found. The leaders were shocked but grateful. They planned to increase security and protect the remaining days of the talks. Despite the danger, Valera felt a strange hope. The more she worked with Daniel, the more she believed in the chance for peace. One evening, as the station glowed softly under distant stars, Valera and Daniel stood on the observation deck. Valera spoke quietly. "I never imagined I would fight so hard for peace, for a future with humans." Daniel smiled. "Neither did I, but sometimes the most unexpected bonds are the strongest." Valera looked at him, her eyes shining. "Thank you for standing with me, for showing me strength is more than just power." Daniel nodded. "It is about heart." They stood together in silence, two beings from different worlds, united by hope and courage. The summit would end soon. But their journey was just beginning. The final day of the summit had arrived. The great hall was filled with delegates from many worlds, all eager to hear the outcome of the talks. Lady Valera stood with confidence, her posture proud yet humble. She had grown much since the first day, not just in strength, but in spirit. Daniel stood nearby, watching her with a quiet smile. Their journey had been hard, filled with challenges neither expected. But through it all, they had learned from each other and built a bond that crossed the stars. As the summit began, leaders took turns speaking about the future of cooperation and peace. When it was Valera's turn, she stepped forward. Her voice was calm but firm. This summit has shown us the power of unity. Despite differences in size, strength, and culture, we can work together. We have faced threats and overcome them, proving that courage and trust are greater than fear. The crowd listened, many nodding in agreement. She looked toward Daniel. And I would like to thank Daniel, a human engineer, who taught me that strength is not only in the body, but in the will to try. Applause filled the hall. After the speeches, the delegates gathered for a final reception. Valera and Daniel stood together, sharing a quiet moment away from the crowd. You have changed a lot, Daniel said softly. So have you, she replied. I no longer fear being too small or too weak. I know now that trying is the greatest strength. Daniel smiled. You showed everyone that, Lady Valera. You made us all proud. They spoke of hopes for the future, of shared knowledge, new friendships, and stronger bonds between their peoples. As the summit came to a close, Valera was honored by her people for her courage and leadership. Daniel was recognized for his dedication and kindness, but more than awards or titles. They valued the friendship they had formed. Before parting, Valera took Daniel's hand gently. This is not the end, it is only the beginning, Daniel nodded. I look forward to what comes next. Together, they looked out at the stars beyond the station's windows. The galaxy was wide and full of mysteries, but also full of hope. In that moment, two beings from different worlds stood united, proof that even when something seems too big or too difficult, with courage and friendship, anything is possible.